Hello, we have already discussed the for in and while loops. Today we will deepen our knowledge by exploring what continue and pass are, their differences and how to use the else block with these loops. In previous lesson we discussed the purpose of break. Let me remind, use that break is used to completely stop the loop. Let's write a for loop that will iterate over a list. Imagine this list contains grades from 2 to 5, where 2 is the lowest grade and 5 is the highest. If someone has a grade of 2, we will stop counting and the loop will break. If a student was absent, we put none. After the loop we will place a message, the end, to see that the loop has finished execution. We write a list to practice on. Now let's write our for loop that will iterate over this list. We will use break if we find a 2. And print out the remaining elements of the list. We run the code. As you can see, it stopped at 2, indicating that there is a bad grade and didn't print 4 and 3. Let's imagine that we need to know for sure that there were no 2s and print a message. Here the else block that applies to the entire loops comes to our 8. This block will execute only if break did not trigger. We add it like this. Let's run it to make sure that this else block does not always execute. We run it and see that it didn't execute, which is expected. Now let's change our condition so that we don't hit the break block by simply removing the 2 from the list. We run it again, and now the else block executed. Notice that the message the end was printed in all cases. We also placed none in our list to represent a student being absent. Suppose our task is to print only the grades. Here continue comes to our 8. When you write continue, the current iteration ends and the next one begins. In other words, break stops the entire loop, while continue stops only the current iteration. Let's implement this in the code. We run it and see that everything works as expected, with none not being printed. You can also write pass instead of continue and the output will be the same. The program will display the same output as if you wrote pass in our example. However, they work differently. Pass does nothing and moves on, while continue stops the current iteration and moves to the next. We'll discuss this more in detail with an example using the while loop in this video. Let's write it and verify. We run it visually. Everything is the same. In the description you will find task and test that I recommended you complete. We talked about the for in loop and break, continue and pass. Can also be used in the while loop. Let me rewrite an example for you, while you listen to the music. Let's break down what is written here. We set the condition that while n is less than the length of our list. Our loop works. We set n equals 0 because indexing in the list starts from 0. Each iteration of the while loops increases, n by 1, allowing us to traverse our list by its indices, which we do here, and here. Let's run it. Everything worked. Now let's return to the difference between pass and continue. In our case, we have pass, so n equal n plus 1. We run it and we see that our program didn't stop and we entered in infinity loop. This happened because when using pass, we moved on and increased our variables by 1. In the case of continue, we don't move on, but enter a new iteration and the value of n remains the same. Let's stop our program by clicking on the red square. To solve this issue, let's add a line to increase n before continue. We run it and everything works. Now let's add a 2 to our list and make sure that breaks works, just like in the for in loop. We see the message we have a bad mark and also see that the rest of the list is not printed, so everything is as expected. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, complete the task under this video and have a great day!